Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video I'll show you how I painted the KOSARGI Nightguard from the Soulblight Gravelords. Here's the KOSARGI Nightguard from the Soulblight Gravelords, and in this video I'll show you step by step how I painted him to a tabletop ready standard using mostly contrast paints. And here he is all primed, ready to go using the Citadel colour Wraithbone undercoat spray. And here's all the paints we'll be using in the video, but I'll put a list of everything we use in the description below with links so you can easily find them if you'd like to follow along. And this is the brush I use. It's a number 2 size Kolinsky synthetic brush, and it's perfect for these kind of models. Okay, let's get started with a 0.926 red by Vallejo, and we're going to give this a nice thick coat all over the base. And later on you'll see we put some crackle paint over this, and I want that red to come through as if it's dried blood under a dried earth, and this is going to fit in with my existing models I've got for the Soulblight Gravelords. And then the next paint we're going to use is a contrast Wyldwood, and this is going to go on those leather boots. And this Wyldwood's perfect if you want to go for a real dark colour leather. And you've got Snakebite leather as another option if you want something a bit lighter, a bit more yellow. And it's really great for like leather pouches, belts and straps and things like that. But I like on this model, I'm kind of copying the images that came with the Curse City box. So I'm going with the dark brown on the boots. And the Wyldwood's perfect for this. One coat and we're going to get some really nice deep shadows in the recesses, and the flatter areas are going to have less paint on as it dries, and that's going to kind of give us an idea of a highlight. But with the contrast paints, you just want to start and end your brush strokes where you want most of that paint to build up, and then just push and pull it around until you're happy you've got a nice coverage and you've got more paint in the recesses and less on those raised areas. And then I'm going to use this on those arm guards as well, those wrist guards, so give it a nice coat. Notice I'm not putting tons and tons of paint on. You don't need to with contrast paint. Each part's different. If there's more creases and more recesses on one section, then you put a little bit more paint on. But for things like these little leather straps that he's got on the front, you don't need a lot of paint at all. Almost just a little bit more than you would find on a felt tip pen, and that's more than enough to go here. So you don't want to go crazy. Next we're going to take that Snakebite leather, so this is great so you can see the actual colour of this, but I'm going to use it for the wood, and this matches closely with the images we get with the Curse City box set. And so this is going to be a really nice, again one coat, really nice wood effect. And normally I wouldn't use Snakebite leather for wood, I'd almost do it the other way around. I'd use this for leather and Wyldwood for wood, but this suits the model, so we're going for it. And you've got some really nice brown colours. You've got other ones to choose from like Sigil brown and Gorgunter fur, but you know, you can see those in lots of the other videos I've done, so you can get lots of different ideas with the browns. But next we're going to take some contrast Basilicanum grey, and this is going to go over the trousers. And now I've got a little bit more paint on my brush here because we've got some really big creases and some large areas to paint over. And here I'm just moving the model, and I'm trying to keep myself so I've got nice control over the brush. I've got my arms braced on the desk so I'm not shaking too much, and then I move the model so I can keep those brush strokes nice and neat. And then I'm just going to work my way around both of the legs there and give this one nice even coat. I'll try and get a little bit more paint into the recesses again by pushing and pulling that paint along. And also when I first take the paint off the brush in one of the strokes, I'll use the contour and texture of the model so that paint comes away from the brush and runs into where I want it to go. But contrast paint's great for things like this. It's really quick and easy, and it's almost like paint by numbers. You just block in each section and just follow the simple steps, and then you can't go wrong with contrast paint. I think it's a really great way to get an awesome tabletop ready standard really quickly. Next we're going to take some Plaguebearer Flesh, and this is going to be for all the areas of skin we can see. And so first we're going to do the hand, so we're going to give this a nice coat. This is a really great paint, nice real pale green, perfect for a kind of zombie look, and so this is going to suit this guy really nicely. And I'll also use this when I paint the zombies as well, so this will all kind of tie in. You'll see it throughout the warband then. And I've decided to theme all the Curse City models that fit into the Soulblight Gravelords the same as I'd had my Legions of Nagash warband for Warcry, and so I'll be using them in that. And I'll also show you later the Crimson Court, who I'll be introducing, so I can get a Vampire Lord in there as well. So it's great. We just got the Warcry fighter cards and abilities released for free by Games Workshop, so we can download those. And I've done a video of that on the channel if you want to check that out too. But let's get back to the painting, and here we go. I'm just doing the face there, and now with the rat, I just wanted to go over that with one coat as well. I just wanted to see what happened. I've never done a green coat followed by like a brown before, so I wanted to try that out on this rat. So you'll see we coat it later with some more colours. Then I'm going to take the skeleton horde, and this is going to be for all the fur, and this is the colour I've got that closely matches the picture, and we'll also put a shade over this later which will darken it a little bit and make it a little bit more brown, because skeleton horde tends to dry quite pale, so you're not going to get really dark rich colours with this. It's perfect for skulls and bones and skeletons, and also for these kind of things. And if you just kind of wet it down a little bit with some contrast medium, you can get a really nice cream colour if you want something that's really pale. I just put some on the fingernails there as well. Then I took some Hound orange, and now this is what we want to do, is cover this large area of this coat with this contrast paint. And when you're doing a large area, you want to get it moved around as quick as you can so it doesn't start drying, because once it starts drying, if you go over it again, you could almost leave like a stain mark, and that doesn't look very good. So I'd probably recommend doing this with a larger brush. I'm using this number 2, but for a big area like this, I think go with a larger brush, and then you get some really nice neat brush strokes and cover that area really a lot quicker, and it's going to give you a neater finish. But I'm going to go over this with another colour later on as well, so I'm not too worried. And because it's quite a large area with lots of creases and recesses in that material, I'm using quite a lot of paint. So I've got a little bit of time before it dries, but just, you know, once you've done a few models, you soon get used to how long you do have. Now I'm going to take some base Wraithbone, and this is like a tidy up stage. So I'm going to go over any areas where I've kind of gone over the lines, and here I put a little bit of the orange over the beard. So I'm just going to tidy that up, bring it back to that Wraithbone base, and then we'll be nice and neat to move forward. And that's another key with the contrast paints and doing this quick tabletop ready method. If you're nice and neat with each section and you get all your colours blocked in really neatly, you can really get away with some really nice effects really quickly and easily. And here I'm just putting some on the teeth, and you can see I did this later on, but I brought it back to this stage so you can see it happening with this tidy up phase. So we've got the same paint, but the coats change colour, and you'll see why in a second. Right, now we're going to take some contrast Apothecary White, and this is really like a grey, got a little bit of blue tint to it, and it's almost like the colour of a shadow on white, and that's exactly what you want from this. This is going to give you a shadow. It's not the best of the contrast paints for sure, and I'm going to go over this with a shade just to bring out those recesses a little bit more. And so I think I've got a lot more experimenting to do with this colour on some other models and see what we can do with it. But for this beard, it's going to give us a nice pale grey, and like I said, we'll put a shade in it just to get those recesses popping out a little bit more. Then we take some contrast for Lupus Pink, and I'm just going to give the rat's tail a little bit of this over that green, and you can see that green's going to come through a little bit, almost give it like a zombie vibe to it as well. And then there's some kind of holes, like pus holes if you like, in this guy's hand, so I'm just going to dot a little bit of Lupus Pink in those holes, and that's going to give us a nice effect. Again, I'm just copying the image that came with the book. Now we're going for that snakebite leather again, and now I'm going to give this a coat all over the rat, and I ended up doing this twice. I gave it 2 coats of snakebite leather because I wanted like a greasy rat look. I was going to do black, as there's no black on the model, but I thought I'd go for like a quite a dark snakebite leather, and that would tie it in with the wood of the handle as well, and I thought that might work better along the base. But on reflection, I think I should have just done it black, but it's up to you. Here we go. Now we're going for some Leadbelcher, and now I'm going to block in all the metal parts. So going with the key here, and then just giving it a nice even coat. I'm just going with 1 coat straight out the pot. I don't wet it down or anything like that, and I find that works really well because we'll be putting some like shade over it and some dry brushing as well. So 1 coat of Leadbelcher is going to be great, and then nice thick coat over this like shoulder guard as well. This little bit of armor here, which is like a wolf's head, but it's metal. So I'm going to give it a metal coat of Leadbelcher, and then the axe, 1 nice coat all over that axe, and we'll do some weathering techniques on this as well to give it like an aged look with some real quick techniques for that as well. Now we're going with technical contrast medium and contrast flesh tearers red, and we're mixing equal quantities of both together and give them a good old mix, and then we're just going to give this a coat all over everything we've painted orange. And then what the orange is going to do is going to come through and give us like an orange highlight almost on the most raised areas and the edges. So I'm not worried about going right up to the edges with this coat, because I want that orange to come through a little bit. And orange is a great highlight if you ever do any red. Then using like an orange colour or a peach kind of flesh tone is really great for highlighting. And so I'm just taking my time now. This, with the contrast medium, I find it doesn't dry as quick, so you've got a little bit longer to work with it too. And just as before, I try and start and end my brush strokes where I want most of that paint to build up, and then I'm kind of not putting as much paint as I did with the orange, so I don't have to spread it around too much. I'm almost like painting it on the areas I want it to go. Then I'm going to take some Nuln Oil, and this is a shade, and this is like a black colour, and this is going to go over everything we painted with that Leadbelcher earlier. And this is just going to give us some different tones, bring out all those little nicks and scratches and all the little recesses on the models, and going to give us a little bit of depth to it. And then I'll just do that on the beard as well. So we've already gone with that Apothecary White contrast, so this black Nuln Oil is just going to bring out the shadows from that beard. And then just going over the little helmet as well, don't forget that bit on the top, and you'll find a lot of the paint runs down that, but it's still good to get it on. And then we're going to go with the Lupus Pink again, and now I'm just going to paint in the gums. So we went over this with that Wraithbone earlier to tidy it up, and now the pink's going to go over the top, and then that's going to bring those gums out, and I'll just put a little bit of skeleton horde over the teeth. Then we're going to take some Agrax Earthshade, and this is going to go over all that fur we did previously, and this is just going to make it a little bit browner, again give it a little bit more depth to those recesses, and the shade's really going to run right in there and really give some depth to it. So this is kind of necessary, because that skeleton horde's a little bit too pale when you compare it to the image, but this worked really well. And I put a little bit in the eyes as well. It's going to be in shadow under that hat, and so I thought that would help kind of just define those eyes a little bit and give a little extra shadow. And then just to take the edge off that red, we're going to give a kind of thin coat of the Agrax Earthshade over the whole coat as well. So everything we painted with that flesh tear red and contrast medium mix, we're going to go over one more time with this Agrax Earthshade. That's just going to knock it back, take a little bit of that red out, and just give a little bit more depth to those recesses as well. And so the Agrax Earthshade's got a kind of brown tinge to it, so that's going to make it all tie in with that dark brown, the snakebite leather that we used on the wood and all the other parts. Then we're going to take some Typhus Corrosion, make sure that shade we put on is completely dry, and then we're just going to stipple this on. And you'll find this is a really sandy paint, so just use an old brush. You don't need to use your good brushes for this. So all those metal parts, I didn't do the keys, I just did the shoulder guards and the axe and just stippled it all on. And then once that was drying, I took some Agrellan Badland, and this is like a coloured paint. It's almost like glue mixed with sand and paint, and so it leaves like a texture at the bottom. So this is great for this effect, and this is what I used on my Legions of Nagash. So I want to tie this in and theme it exactly the same as I did with them. So I'm using that and just dotting it around in places. I've just got this little tool. You can use a brush, but I've got this little tool which is perfect for this. And then I'm just dotting it around, having a look to see where it looks kind of best. Just making it look as random and as natural as possible. And so we want just this to be in little lumps, because we're going to use another technical paint later on, which is a crackle paint, and that paint's going to go in all the gaps we leave at this stage, and then that'll crackle, and then that red will start to come through as if we've got like a desert badland with the idea behind it when I did it for the Legions of Nagash was that it was an ancient battle, and it was a blood-soaked land that completely dried up, and the necromancer resurrected the skeleton army from that land. So they're all dusty, they've come out of this blood-soaked, dried up earth that's been there for like thousands of years, and that was the whole idea with the theme. So now I'm taking some Agrellan Earth, and this is the crackle paint, and it's exactly the same colour. So the thicker you put this on, usually the larger the cracks you'll get in the paint, and it takes a good 5 hours to dry. I always like to leave it overnight for the best effect, but you can put it on really thin and you'll just get some really faint cracks, but the thicker you put it on, the bigger those cracks will be. So I kind of just vary it. I go thin in one part, thick in another, really pile it up in some parts, because you can put it on really thick. It's a really creamy thick texture to it, so you know you've got lots of control with it as well, which is good. It's not going to run everywhere. Then I take some Stormhost silver and my very vegan makeup brush with super soft bristles. It's got a little point to it as well, so I can get some detail in there. And then I'm just going to load up my bristles, work that into a kitchen towel, and then take off as much paint as I can on the cardboard and the paper towel, and then we're ready to dry brush. And so I'm just going to go down the edges first, because I want this to have a nice bold edge highlight, and then I'll work my way around all those edges, and then just gently dragging my brush along on that sharp part, which would tend to be a little bit brighter than the rest of the model. And then I'll just move the model, making it easy for myself again, just catching those edges and giving it a nice highlight. You could do this with a brush and literally paint it on, but I find this is a lot quicker, and I'd like the effect it gives as well. And it's also, I don't know if I can have a steady enough hand to get a really neat line, and so I find doing this dry brushing gives me a really quick effect, and one that I like as well. And so I'm also confident doing it, so you know, with that confidence comes more enjoyment of doing the model as well. I find if I'm worrying about messing it up, certainly at the end at this stage, then I'm not enjoying it as much. So I want to enjoy the process, and I'm only trying to look for tabletop ready. I want it to be quick, and I want it to look quite good. So now we're going for some Gryph Hound orange, and I'm just going to put a few little dots. And what I did is I put some on my brush, and then I wiped that paint off the brush on some kitchen towel, so hardly any is going to come off, because I don't want it to look rusty, but I just want to add little flecks of orange in there just to break it up a little bit and give it an extra little colour. You'll hardly notice it when it's finished, but I think because we've used that orange underneath the coat, and it's just going to tie it in with that, just takes a few like extra minute to do, and I think the effect is worth it. I put a little bit more here in the recesses as well on these shoulder guards, and just dotted in a little bit more on the top too. And I think that worked nicely. But then I wanted to add a little bit more, so I took some Gilliman Flesh and I did the same thing. Just going to dot a few little bits on, and also colour in these keys. I thought if we can make the keys a different colour, that would be nice to break it up a little bit. And this gives it like a bronzy, more aged look. So we've changed that metal. And this is a really nice technique to do with the contrast paints. And then again, just dotted a little bit on the metal, just to give it a little bit more kind of feature there to look at. Then we're going to take some Ushabti bone, and I'm doing the same dry brush thing of working that into the bristles and off on the kitchen towel and cardboard. And then I'm just going to go along all that base. So make sure this base is completely dry now before you do this stage. And I'll go all around it really gently, just picking out those raised areas, letting that texture from the paint do all the work for me, and then just going all over it, making sure I've caught it all. Then I'll get some blue tack, pop that on the end of my brush, and I can pick up the model, fix it to the blue tack, and then that gives us a little turntable, which is going to make it super easy to paint the rim. And for this rim, we're going to use some Vallejo Beige 0.875 and give it 2 nice coats all around. And you can see I can just use my brush, keep it in one spot almost, and then just turn that the brush that I'm holding it up with the blue tack, and that acts as a nice little turntable. And there we go, there's our KOSARGI Nightguard painted to a tabletop ready standard with mostly contrast paint and a little bit of dry brushing and some Typhus Corrosion technical paint to give that metal an aged look. I was really happy with how he turned out. It reminds me a little bit of Santa Claus gone wrong, a kind of zombie Santa, but I'm really happy. I think he's going to fit in well with the army. You can see on the back here we've got that real deep red cloak, little bit of green coming through, which always works nicely together. And here he is next to the Necromancer, and he's going to join the Legions of Nagash warband, who are going to turn into the Soulblight Gravelords. And I'll be using these for Warcry, and I've decided to use all the Cursed City models for that Warcry warband, but I need a Vampire Lord, and so for that I'm going to go with the Crimson Court set I got for Underworlds, and then I can use those vampires too. But if you want to find out where the Warcry fighter cards are and ability cards for the Soulblight Gravelords, then I've done a video on the channel showing you how you can go and download them from the Warhammer community website. If you're interested in Legions of Nagash and want to see the Necromancer in action, then check out my battle report I did with them against the Beasts of Chaos. And you can also see how I painted the Legions of Nagash Necromancer, the Seneschal, and I also did some of the skeletons, including this skeleton warrior. So that's all up on the channel, and I'll put links in the description below for all the paints we've used in this video, and also to Element Games, where you can get those paints and also pick up some of the models for the Soulblight Gravelords. And there'll be affiliate links, but they won't cost you anything extra. In fact, you can save up to 20% there, and every sale made through that link, I get a small commission, and that helps me do loads more videos like this and help me develop the channel. So thanks so much for that support. It's really brilliant, and I really appreciate it. If you like this kind of content and would like to support the channel, then please check out my Patreon page, and thanks to everyone who's joined so far. It's really awesome. We hang out on Discord, talk about the hobby, share ideas and help each other out, and you'll get some perks there that you're not going to find anywhere else. So I'll put a link in the description, and it'll be great to see you there. I hope you enjoyed the video and this gave you a good idea of how quick and easy it is to paint up some of these models, but I'd love to hear what you think, so join in the comment section below, and I'd love to read all your comments and hear your thoughts and feedback. But thanks so much for watching. Please like if you like it, subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games.